Next we have Mr. Adrian Ole, the Director of Human Capital at Deloitte, and he will be talking us through the fact that the world that we live in is increasingly driven by accelerating connectivity, new talent models and cognitive tools, and as a result, work is changing. Very excited to hear how work is changing because I work every day, all the time like this. And as such, we must reconsider how jobs will be redesigned and will change in the face of these developments. Mr. Ole.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Great. So I was having a chat briefly while we were having a tea break about what Deloitte does. And I think there's an understanding out there that Deloitte is auditors, accountants, tax agents, and you would be right. You would be right. But there's also a small growing population within Deloitte, people like me, who are leading a charge for consulting. And part of the consulting business is really looking at human capital and what's the future of work for us with all these disruptions that are going on. So today I'm standing in front of you as a designer, but as a designer of organizations and jobs. So we've talked about product design and we've talked about spatial design, but for me design and the application of design thinking is really around how can we create jobs and organizations that take into account all of the disruptions that are occurring and end up providing us with the type of jobs and the type of workplaces we want to be working in the future. So to kick us off, I'm going to hopefully play a video just to get us started.
Everyone's talking about the future of work, and a lot of what they're saying is disturbing. Robots are taking over all manual labor. AI will replace all kinds of white-collar jobs. And humans will be contingent labor, scavenging for the limited work remaining. Yeah, pretty alarming. At Deloitte, we don't see things that way. The future of work is this. That's right, people. People empowered to do what we do best. Thinking creatively, using our emotional intelligence, making value judgments, communicating, teaching, sharing wisdom. Our human capital teams are plugged into worldwide developments and trends, and we see 5 clear realities we can all act upon right now. Reality 1, everything is on the table. 57% of jobs globally are highly vulnerable to automation. Work, workers, workplaces, they're all going to change dramatically within the next 7 years. Why now? Because a number of factors have brought us to a tipping point. The world of work would change as radically as the world of personal communication began changing 10 years ago. Do you remember questions like these? So change is coming, and to make the most of it, we need to open our minds. Reality 2, technology learns faster than we can. Amazon uses robots to select, stack, package, and ship items with almost no human intervention. We already know technology learns far faster than we can, but it's also true that it has changed our personal lives more than the way we work. That's good news, because as technology changes the world of work, we'll already be familiar with many of its advances. Reality 3, the new workforce will be highly diverse. 70% of business leaders believe they need a new mix of talent and skills in the future. We've been writing about the open talent economy for years. Well, today, it's here. Traditional employees will increasingly be joined by contractors, freelancers, and crowdsourced talent, as well as robots and AI applications. Office parties will never be the same again. Reality 4, work to learn, not learn to work. The average half-life of a learned business competency has dropped from 30 years in 1984 to 5 years in 2014, and is still dropping. As routine work is automated, we'll be able to focus more on truly human skills. We'll have careers built around learning instead of careers built around jobs. Reality 5, public policy needs to catch up. By 2020, more than 75% of the S&P 500 will be companies that we have not heard of yet. All this change will happen while the government still struggles to come to grips with it, but we can't wait for them. It will be up to our leaders in business and society to help drive public policy and bring everyone along. With these 5 new realities in mind, Deloitte is working with organizations around the world to help them recalibrate talent, technology, and workplaces. So while everything will change, we have the framework that can help you understand how to make it work best for you. Above all, we know what the future of work is really all about. Us. So let's get to work.
So what I'd like to invite you to do today, and actually for the next 10 to 15 years, is help Deloitte and the human capital professionals that work in Deloitte to solve for a very significant design challenge that we're working on, which is, what is the future of work, and how can we prepare both society, individuals, and organizations for what's coming? So when we stand back and we look at what are the disruptors that are changing the way that we work and changing the work that needs to be done, we've already spoken a little bit today about some of the major drivers there. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, all of those things are very real, and even in my day-to-day work, I'm starting to see the implications of these type of technology transformations on people's jobs. So if you talk to the CEOs of major companies, they see automation, artificial intelligence, robotics as a way to remove jobs, remove headcount, release productivity, however you want to put it. There are implications for people's jobs. On top of that, though, there's a number of other trends that are really changing the way that we like to work and the way that individuals coming into the workforce are asking to be able to work. So one of the main drivers is this idea of explosion in contingent work. So the days of working for an organization, full-time, permanent, 5 days a week, 8 to 9 to 10 hours a day, doesn't seem to be very attractive to that many people anymore. Many generations, that was kind of the only option, so we had to do it. However, people are much more interested in working in part-time roles, working through crowdsourcing platforms or as other types of contingent working, and sharing their skills with organizations that have a mission that matches their passion. So give me an opportunity to work for an organization that is trying to solve for the type of problems that I feel passionate for, and I will work for that company as long as they need me. But force me to work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day for a company that actually don't feel passionate about working for, and you will not get my full passion. Organizations are starting to realize this. The second driver here is the 100-year life cycle. So stats are showing that anyone who's born today, not born today already, I mean being born today, has a very large percentage possibility of living for 100 years or longer. So what does that mean? That means productive life for each of us in that situation would be 70 to 75 years worth of work. Many companies and many countries, in fact, are already struggling with the idea of retirement at the age of 65. There's been a number of discussions in the past couple of months that have really raised major concerns among citizens about governments raising retirement age to the age of 70 and even in one case 75. So imagine today if you found out that you cannot retire until the age of 75. However, what they're trying to do is they're trying to plan for the future. They're trying to plan for the future of the workforce and ensure that we don't end up with large populations of people retiring at the age of 65 with a potential workforce or ability to contribute to society for another 10 to 15 to 20 years. Diversity and generational change. I'm sure you've heard it before. There is a large mix of generations now in the workforce. And the big media beat up around millennials are coming. The millennials are already here. In fact, they make up 50% of the workforce, and they're in management roles. And the ideals and the understandings and the desires that millennials had for the way that they work are now being taken up by all generations in the workforce. So it's no longer about the millennials, it's about the new workforce and the way that we're choosing to work and the jobs that we're choosing to do. And then across that, things that we've been talking about, innovation. Organizations are starting to understand that the best way to create innovation within an organization is to create very diverse teams, to generate different ideas, understand what new products or new services can be created. You need to bring together a set of people who have very different perspectives to really come up with the new ideas. So the idea of functionally creating organizations is now starting to die as a concept slowly. So to have operations, sales and marketing, finance, HR separated, and with processes that have to fight their way between the walls, is being broken down. And the type of workforce you're going to be entering is multifunctionally, multidisciplined type of teams that are working on specific problems to be solved for, using design thinking, using agile. We're now working with major organizations, multinationals, all the way down to local companies here in Singapore. How can we restructure our organization that allows teams to come together as and when needed to solve for problems, then dissolve and reform as required? So imagine a workplace where you no longer have a job title, where you're respected and needed for the type of skills you bring to the workplace, and your career is guided by the skill sets that both you personally want to develop and the skill sets that your organization needs to get its job done. So what does this all mean? Let's have a little discussion about how to navigate this type of future. So when we break it down, on the left-hand side, you can kind of see the traditional way that we've thought about organizations, hierarchies. And a hierarchy is made up of managers and employees who hold job positions, and those employees who are employed under job descriptions. We're starting to see that the concept of job description is fading quickly. To employ someone purely for a set of activities that they may or may not start on day one, and they definitely won't be doing on day 6, no longer is relevant. What we're starting to see is organizations seeking out skills, seeking out the capabilities that they need, and seeking that in a way that is not through traditional recruitment. It's through many different ways. In fact, things using platforms such as hackathons or platforms such as crowdsourcing are becoming a much more effective way of sourcing in this type of model. Then what we see on the second side of the transform is this new blend of humans working with robots, humans working with artificial intelligence. We don't see a complete separation of robots in one corner, humans in the other. In fact, where the most successful application of AI and application of robotics has become is where they support and they augment humans in the workforce, allowing the humans to start to leverage some of the new skill sets, some of the capabilities that will push us further. So design thinking, agile ways of working, human connection, communication will become much more of a valuable skill set as automation and artificial intelligence starts to move further into organizations. Then on the right-hand side, you see the different type of options that organizations are taking up to find this skill set. So if I can't find this type of skill set in my local community, through a job description, through recruitment, how else can I find it? And we're starting to see joint ventures where organizations are working, in some cases, with their competitors to job share. So if I have a desperate need for data scientists or design thinkers, and my competitor has the same problem, is it possible that we can start to share that capability between the two of us? Certainly we will keep the problems different, but how can we utilize that scarce resource? We're starting to see freelancers becoming more and more the way that people are choosing. In fact, in the US, over the last 2 years, 95% of net new jobs have been freelancing jobs. Just have a think about that. So the day of going and applying for a full-time employment, only 5% of all new jobs in the US over the past 2 years have been traditional type of recruitment. And then we see crowdsourcing as becoming a much more viable solution, particularly in design. So why do I have to bring full-time employees into my organization to solve for my design challenges when I have the entire world at my fingertips through crowdsourcing platforms? Okay, went that way? Okay, great. So what does that mean? So what we're seeing is significant disruption in 3 aspects. The way we're trying to solve for this big question of what does the future of work look like, we're breaking it really down into 3 questions. So number 1, what is the work? What work will we be doing in the future? What does that look like? And predominantly we're starting to see that, yes, artificial intelligence and robotics will start to take away a lot of the manual work that we're used to doing. So everything from lifting boxes to typing out documents to asking questions of Google are really becoming easily automated. And in fact, a study recently showed that a lot of the effort in artificial intelligence and machine learning has been focused on product development and service provision. So here we're talking about Amazon providing products and understanding what you're going to buy next. However, there's a big unmet opportunity in the back office. So finance, HR, supply chain. And because of the style of work, the repetitive style of work that happens in that part of the organization, it's much easier to leverage artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we see this almost this tsunami of change that will come for support functions. It's only just begun. And who will be working in your new organization? Well, you're certainly not going to have a lot of full-time permanent employees unless you really need that skill set over a long period of time. But you will start to have networks of teams working in your organization. You'll have freelancers maybe there for 3 to 4 months to help with a specific problem. You may be using crowdsourcing platforms. You might be working with partners that actually have no contractual relationship with you at all. And then where will we be working? So as more and more artificial reality comes into play, more and more virtual working comes into play, we see organizations leveraging skill sets wherever they need it from whenever they need it. So whenever they need it from wherever they need it, from wherever in the world. Very easy to do. And creating such a immersive environment through virtual reality and artificial reality that it almost feels like that person is working right next to you. So when you take these three combinations, imagine you're starting an organization today. No longer would you start that organization and start to think, okay, who's going to be my 100th employee? What sort of office space do I need to create so I can keep everyone in arm's reach? What sort of work can I do that will keep people busy? You're going to start to think through a very different lens in terms of the work that you're creating. So if we look briefly around what are the robots, what are the artificial intelligence able to do already today? Where's the change going to come? We can see it's both across physical and the digital world. So both thinking and doing will become disrupted very quickly. And we're already on that journey. And you can see that there's so many different pieces of this puzzle coming together that in fact the biggest step we see changing will be as these various pieces come together and create systems of systems, then we will see a very significant shift in the way that work occurs. So putting in place Internet of Things, allowing machines to talk to each other in order to get jobs done without any human interaction will have a significant impact on places such as the mine site or the farm, where we're starting to see technologies able to operate an entire farm or an entire mine site without single human physical involvement in that. So the question is, what does that leave for us poor old humans? What does that leave for us poor old humans if the robots are going to take over all our jobs? It means that we need to start thinking about ourselves in a very different way. So stop thinking about yourself as your job description. So often when we go to staff parties or you meet people at conferences or forums such as this, one of the first questions we ask each other is, what do you do? Can I see your business card? You look at their business card and we immediately start attributing that person's skills and capabilities to what's written on their job description. However, this needs to change. And one of the ways we're trying to work with companies, or we are working with companies to try and solve for this, is to start to break down job descriptions into sets of skills. Start to see humans as their capabilities, what they're capable of doing as opposed to what they're signed up to do. And by doing that, we start to then able to apply what does a career look like for an individual like this? What sort of learning opportunities should we provide? What sort of job skills or job opportunities can we provide to leverage those type of skills? So on the left-hand side, you see here one of our first major iterations around what we're calling a future of work ontology. So if we can start to look at all the jobs that get done on the planet, can we start to categorize the skills that are used into some usable form so we can then start to apply disruptions against those skill sets? So if we take skill sets that we use in order to assess things, to solve problems, to produce something, to communicate and to supervise, and then we start to think about all the disruptions that are occurring. So how will artificial intelligence or robotics affect the activity of problem solving? How will drones or other types of automated robotic systems affect supervision, for example? And as you start to see through this lens, you start to have a better view of what are the potential implications for the type of workforce that you might have. So the way this plays out, let's take 5 relevant jobs that are very appropriate in the market. So lorry driver or truck driver, we have the CEO, the architect, the doctor, and the humble management consultant standing in front of you. If we take just the idea of production, so producing things usually either in manual ways or requiring some form of physical activity to produce, and then we take one simple disruptor called automation, and we apply that across these jobs, we can then start to see what are the different implications for these type of jobs, for individuals working in these jobs. And this only assumes that individuals are doing the type of tasks that at least have some relevance to their job description. So the news here is for the lorry driver, a large amount of disruption will be coming. So automated vehicles, a whole range of other activities that will apply to that. So the conversation here with all of our truck drivers, taxi drivers, and extend that further as far as you want, what sort of skills do you have today that you're using in your current job that are transferable to other jobs or other future possibilities that will come your way? So now we start to get into a different conversation. Now we start to understand what is the disruption for individuals. We can start to have conversations with them about what sort of transitional steps can you take today to start to prepare you for this future that's coming. So you have skills in the way you assess things in your job today. Can we take that assessment capability and start to develop it in a different way or utilize it in different types of jobs? So coming back to Deloitte, we have a lot of accountants and a lot of auditors. And one of the reasons why we started this journey was we realized that audit and accounting as a profession is right up there as being one of the biggest professions to be disrupted through artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's only a short 5 to 10 years away when becoming an accountant and becoming an auditor will probably be one of your worst career choices, for those of you out there. So we were, for a result of that, we started on this journey. And you can see here, one thing we did learn is that for management consultants, actually we don't produce anything at all, which I'm sure you all probably knew. So our friends at McKinsey have taken this conversation a little bit further to say, okay, if this is the case and disruption is occurring, what jobs will be valuable in the future? Where should we start to move people in order to utilize some of this spare capability that we'll have in the future? And if you break down what we do into 5 kind of broad categories, you can see that the physical and manual skills are the ones that will be impacted the greatest. However, there are so many people, particularly in Southeast Asia and Asia broadly, that are involved in physical and manual activities in their jobs that it will still be the largest category of jobs to be done. However, there will be a significant impact. In fact, I read a number yesterday, 6.6 million jobs in Southeast Asia alone will be impacted by some of these technologies. 6.6 million in the next 5 years. So that asks the question, what are the jobs or the skill sets that we're going to need a lot more of? Where can people start to move into? So as we start to see more applications for artificial intelligence, robotics, and some of the other technology arts, obviously we're going to need a lot more people who can work on this. So how can we start to build skills in the space of machine learning programming or development of higher end technologies and robots? Big demand coming already. In fact, it's a demand that can't be met today. Data scientists, for example, very difficult to find large talent pools of data analytics or data scientists. The second piece they're also identifying here is higher end social and emotional skills. So the ability to have communications, build relationships, understand user needs, user experience. So design thinking is really being understood as one of the areas that we need to develop for. So congratulations to those of you who are choosing design thinking and UX as a career pathway, because you're going to be in need. So may there be many more of you. And where we're seeing somewhere in the middle is this difference between what they call basic cognitive skills and higher cognitive skills. So basic skills are the ability to make simple decisions, work with computers, do transactions, repetitive transactions, versus those that require a higher end and analytic capability and decision making. So less sitting at my desk, pumping out transactions, more understanding what's been done by the robots and the artificial intelligence and translating that into business objectives or business strategy. So the ability to make decisions and translate what the machines are doing will also become higher in demand. So if you're looking for something for your kids to do, I highly suggest that you don't recommend them to be accountants, lawyers, and auditors, and start to think about how we can introduce them to the arts and to design and emotional thinking, and more so into the technology capabilities, the advanced technology capabilities that are coming through. Okay, so just to wrap this up, you can also prepare your kids to understand that the way that mummy and daddy used to work with companies also is going to change. So I'm not going to force you to go and get your first job and become a full-time permanent employee and then stick your job out for 20 to 25 years. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to take as many opportunities to test and trial, work with different companies, leverage your skills, because companies will no longer be able to afford the cost of training you. So if you think about how quickly skills are changing every day, so as soon as we think everyone should train up on Python, then there'll be a new version of developer language that we need to train up on. Companies and societies simply will not be able to afford the massive retraining that will be required year on year moving forward. So the responsibility is coming back to the individual. So you should be telling your kids, get out there and start to learn. Learn on the job, and if you're not learning today, leave that employer and go and work for another employer and another employer. And try to have as many employers at the same time as you possibly can, because that will increase your value as quickly as possible. And finally, the other thing to think about is where they will be working. So there's a growing trend within the Southeast Asia region. You may have seen them on Facebook posts of people working in Bali as working on crowd platforms and working as freelancers. And they're making a career choice out of this and becoming very successful at doing it as well. So maybe that's the future for us all. When it's time to retire, we can all move to a beach somewhere, still be faithfully employed by companies that need us, even though that we're 85 to 90 years old, and continuing to contribute to society in meaningful ways. So I'll leave you there with those thoughts. Thank you very much.